It's the Magic Untapped Podcast on magicantapped.com, YouTube, and your favorite source for podcasts. Hello, Magic players, and welcome to the Magic Untapped Podcast. I'm your host, Barry White, all on my lonesome for this month. But you know what? That's just fine. I've been perfectly fine being on my. No, I'm kidding. No, we're fine. We're fine. But you know what else is fine? Saying a thank you to our Patreon supporter, Lino Hernandez. Thank you very much for your continuous support of $5 a month to help keep Magic Untapped afloat and alive and doing, well, fine. And you know what? We have a new Magic set coming out this month. That would be Innistrad Midnight Hunt. It's already come out on Magic the Gathering Arena. Actually, I did a traditional draft of that, and you can find that video on the Magic Untapped YouTube page if you want to go check that out. Spoiler alert, I did not go undefeated, but I did have fun. I actually ended up liking the set more than I thought I would. Going through the spoilers and everything, I actually wasn't all that crazy about Midnight Hunt, but turns out that it's actually kind of fun, at least in limited. It's actually kind of fun, which I guess is a good thing, really. And speaking of Innistrad Midnight Hunt, the set is bringing with it a number of cards that are of some pretty good interest, depending on what kind of format you play. If you are a standard player, again, standard's going through rotation right now. Eldraine is gone. Those Magic 2021 is gone. Those older few sets are gone. So smaller card pool, getting a whole bunch of new ones added to that smaller card pool with the release of Midnight Hunt here at rotation. And just a few I want to point out as I think as being pretty good standard cards. One of them is Hadar, Ghoul Caller of Nephalia. It's a 1/1/2 drop, which is fine. Legendary creature, cool. But the real cool thing is, at the beginning of your instep, if you control no creatures with Decayed, you get a 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decayed. And Decayed is one of those new abilities being introduced in this set, where it says the creature with Decayed cannot block, and when it attacks, you have to sacrifice it at the end of combat. Cool thing is, that can fire off a lot of leave the battlefield effects. Also, Hadar replaces its own zombies, which is kind of neat. And I think it's going to be a pretty good card in standard. Another one, of course, the Planeswalker Wrenn and 7, which is 2 green and 3, has 4 modes on this thing. Number 1, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. Put all land cards revealed this way into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. Its 0 is put any number of land cards from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. A -3 creates a green treeful creature token with reach, and the ability, quote, this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. And then it's -8 ultimate, return all permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. You get an emblem in which you have no maximum hand size. That's cool and all, but I really think it's +1 and it's -3 might be some of the coolest abilities out on this one card. I do expect to see Wrenn and 7 to see a nice amount of play in standard. Another one, of course, is Meathook Massacre. It's a mythic rare legendary enchantment for 2 black and X. When it enters the battlefield, each creature gets -X/-X until end of turn. And when a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. And whenever one of their creature dies, you gain 1 life. So it really is a massacre card. Clear the board, trade a bunch of life. It's going to be a lot of fun in standard, I do think, especially with the nice number of decks that like to run a lot of small creatures in tokens and what have you. Another one that I think is going to be really good in standard is Fateful Absence, which is a rare instant for white and 1. Destroy target creature or planeswalker its controller investigates. Yes, you're giving them card draw. Granted, they do have to pay 2 mana for that card draw, but you did give them card draw. But It's at instant speed. It can take out any creature, any planeswalker, of course, barring regeneration. Well, that's not a thing right now in standard, but you know what I mean, indestructible and what have you. But it's very efficient, especially in white. And the drawback really isn't that much of a drawback. Plus, you can target your own creature with it, especially if it's going to die anyway, or it's got something on it that's hurting you. You can trade your own creature for a clue token. I think that's pretty good. And one other I want to point out is an uncon called Infernal Grasp. It's an instant for black and 1. Destroy target creature, you lose 2 life. Also extremely efficient. Oh no, you lose 2 life, whatever. If those 2 life were going to cost you the game, then you've probably already lost the game anyway. So Infernal Grasp, definitely another card to look for in Innistrad Midnight Hunt for Standard. Now, of course, Standard is not the only format. I'm not going to cover every format, but I do want to cover at least one other. I want to talk about Historic, which is a format I play a lot on Magic Arena. There's a lot of really good cards, including some reprints coming out in Historic. First one I want to talk about is Delver of Secrets, which is the hot popular reprint that Mark Rosewater teased that everybody thought was going to be Snapcaster Mage, which would have been so freaking awesome. But yeah, that didn't happen. But we do get Delver of Secrets, which is a 1/1 for 1 blue. It's a good first turn card because at the beginning of your upkeep, you look at the top card of your library. If it's an instant sorcery, that 1/1 turns into a 3/2 with flying. Delver has been a very popular card in Modern. It's seen play in Legacy. Not surprised at all that it's, I think, one of the top cards in Historic coming out of this set. Another one I want to point out is Champion of the Perished, which is kind of a pun on Champion of the Parish from, I think it was the original Innistrad or Dark Ascension, one of those. But anyway, Champion of the Perished is a 1/1 for 1 black. It's a zombie. And whenever another zombie enters the battlefield under your control, you put a +1/+1 counter on Champion of the Perished. By the way, those zombies include the decayed ones that you get from various effects and spells and what have you, including ones that Hadar may make for you as well. I mentioned it in the standard list. I think in Historic, Meathook Massacre will see play. I'm not entirely sure how much play, but I do think people are going to at least experiment with it. And at worst, I think it could be a pretty interesting and versatile board wipe with that extra plus gain 1 life, lose 1 life sort of ability tacked on, because it is an enchantment that will stay on the battlefield. And finally, I want you to consider the card. Well, consider for 1 blue as an instant. Look at the top card of your library. You might put that card into your graveyard. Basically, 1 blue to surveil, but surveil as a keyword's not in this set, so they have to spell it out for you. But then you also get to draw a card. So you take a look. Hey, that's a card I want. Cool, I'll draw it. It's not a card I want. I'll pitch it. I'll draw the next thing. I could see a lot of decks running Consider instead of Opt. They may opt to do that. It would be worth consideration. Yeah. Okay, I'll stop. But no, I think Consider might be one of the best, if not the best card in Innistrad Midnight Hunt for Historic. But yeah, the set overall does have a lot of really cool stuff. There's tons of splashy mythics. The adversary cycle is very aggressive and very neat. We also have a new cycle of dual lands that enter the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands, so they're more for later. And then, of course, we have these really, really neat black and white, full art, basic lands that are really quite striking and really kind of set the mood for the set overall. And now that I've gotten a chance to actually, like I said, play with this, and it's kind of improved my my image of this set. I'm now a little more keen about the next Innistrad set that's coming out. Innistrad Crimson Vow. to kind of see what's going to happen with that. Is it going to kind of follow the same motions as this? I know theming and whatnot's going to be different. How's it going to compare in power? A little more power, a little less power. I'm a little more interested, especially because it's coming out so soon after Midnight Hunt, just a month or so after Midnight Hunt's coming out. And of course, this weekend is the Innistrad Midnight Hunt pre-release at your LGS. I know I'm going. I should be going tonight for Friday Night Magic to in the local game stores here in the Sacramento area. Shout out to Great Escape Games. And yeah, I think it's just going to be a lot of fun for all of us. At least, the limited seems to be a lot of fun. Not really sure what to look for as far as how to build standard with it. I haven't had that much of a chance to really sit down with it and start tinkering and what have you. But I am really keen to see if I come up with anything. And if I do, I'll of course share that with the audience. But I'm really, the people who are much better deck builders than me, I really want to see what you guys come up with. I really think you're going to find some really fun card interactions, some combos, and maybe just some straight up wacky stuff that just works. So a lot to look forward to here with Innistrad Midnight Hunt. Now moving on, we're going to talk a little Legacy, which is my favorite format on the planet for Magic the Gathering. And nothing too earth-breaking. I just thought I would share with you my version of the Omnitell deck, which is a blue-green deck. I'm going to put the deck list here up on the screen for those of you watching on YouTube. And for those of you not watching, I'm just going to go ahead and go right down it, starting with the land. I'm running 19 land in this Legacy deck. That includes 2 Ancient Tombs, 1 Crystal Vein. I will say some of my selections are budgetary selections, but still, it seems to work just fine for me. Okay, so yeah, 2 Ancient Tombs, 1 Crystal Vein, 4 Misty Rainforest, 1 Mystic Sanctuary, 2 Prismatic Vista, 2 Snow-Covered Forest, 5 Snow-Covered Island, 1 Tropical Island, 1 Waterlogged Grove. On creatures, I have 2 Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn, 2 Gristlebrand, 3 Icefang Coddles. Coddle? I don't know. However you pronounce it. Tell me in the comments here how you pronounce it on YouTube. The instants, I'm running 17 of those, 4 Brainstorms, 3 Cunning Wish, 1 Factor Fiction, 4 Force of Will, 1 Impulse, 1 Intuition, and 3 Veil of Summer. And then 13 Sorceries, 3 Drawn from Dreams, 4 Ponder, 2 Preordain, 4 Show and Tell. And then 5 Enchantments, 1 Sylvan Library, and 4 Omniscience. On the sideboard / wishboard, I'm running a pair of Boseiju, Who Shelters All, 2 Carpet of Flowers, 2 Echoing Truth, 1 of each of Elandamri's Call, Aramine's Foresight, Force of Negation, Force of Vigor, 2 of each of Grafdigger's Cage and Mindbreak Trap, and finally an extra Veil of Summer. And basically the whole concept here is you really want to get the Show and Tell out, have an Omniscience, play that, and then let you play everything else for free. You get out a Griselbrand, draw a lot of cards, get out Emrakul. It's practically GG at that point, which is kind of nice. To protect your strategies, you have Veil of Summer. You have your counter spells with Force of Will and what have you. There's a lot of card draw. So even if you don't have in your hand an Emrakul or a Griselbrand, you can do the Drawn from Dreams. You can ponder, preordain, brainstorm. There's a lot of ways to cycle through this. And it can quite often fire off pretty darn quick, which you will find is pretty darn good. Now, I will say I have not lost with this deck since I have built it. I will also say that I built it during COVID. I've only played kitchen table and over spell table online. I have not gone to an event because there haven't been any Legacy events, at least not here in the Sacramento area or even anywhere nearby that I would want to drive to. So while yes, it is undefeated only in the purest of I have played it since, not I have played it competitively. That stated, I know other people who pilot very similar builds of Omnitell to this, and they do quite well on the regular. So this Omnitell deck, which by the way, according to TCG Player market value, is between about $1,900 and $2,400. less than some modern decks, I think, these days. It's a very powerful, very strong, and very fun to play deck. Not always fun to play against, but it's not supposed to be. So there you have it. And finally, before we close out this one-man podcast here on Magic Untapped this month, I just want to talk about some news, some banning news that happened in Commander. The most popular Commander card actively being played can no longer be played. And that, of course, if you haven't heard, is Golos Tireless Pilgrim. And in the banning announcement, the powers that be said, quote, "We understand that many players love Golos, so we don't take this action lightly. In the end, the health of the format is our primary concern, and we find Golos unhealthy. While Kenrith the Returned King is a similar flexible and popular commander for good stuff 5-color decks, we see it as a clear step down from Golos." And I think they are right about it being a clear step down from Golos, but that doesn't make it any less scary. Kenrith, that is. As far as Golos, the big problem here is that whereas Kenrith is tied to a color, Golos is, well, a colorless creature. Granted, it has color identity of all 5 colors, but to get it out, you can use any color or non-color of Magic if you want. So it's very easy to get out. And it ramps. You can get like a mini omniscience with its ability, and it really is just, well, kind of overpowered. So I'm not saying I'm happy about the ban. I'm not saying I'm disappointed about the ban. I am saying, however, that I think it's something that may have been a bit overdue. Commander players who had to break down the deck, I guess I'm sorry, but that just happens to be, well, the way I see it. And there was one other announcement that went along with the Golos ban. That would be the unbanning of the card Worldfire. By the way, since that card's been unbanned, it's only been a few days. It's gone from about $1.50 to about $25 in value. Surprise, surprise there. Anyway, Worldfire is a card that's 3 red and 6. It's a sorcery. It says exile all permanents, exile all cards from all hands and all graveyards, and each player's life total becomes 1. Basically, F this game. As I knock something off the table next to me, F this game. But they unbanned it. Mainly because, and quoting the Commander Rules Committee here, Worldfire was once banned due to the problematic interaction with floating mana and having access to your commander. We want to foster a commander environment where 8 and 9 mana spells are viable and likely to show up in a game. So we evaluate the expensive ones in that context. Unlike Coalition Victory and Biorhythm, which we continue to believe are problematic in that environment, the level of effort needed to make Worldfire effective is sufficient that we suspect it will be not as much of an issue. There are already cheaper ways to do similar things in the format. We believe the social contract and robust pre-game discussions will keep Worldfire out of games in which it doesn't belong. Thing is, social contract, pre-game discussions, I'm sorry, if the card is allowed, then it's allowed. If it's not on the ban list, then it's on the go ahead and play it list. So the fact that they're asking people to almost come up with their own addendums to the commander ban list if they don't want cards like Worldfire in their games is, I think, a little ignorant and a little short-sighted. People are going to play what they're allowed to play, not what their buddies think they should play. Now, they might not play the Worldfire deck because they don't want to piss off their friends, but that's a them decision. If they want to play it, all the more power to them. Let them play Worldfire. I don't see a problem with them playing it. If the rules committee thinks it's a card that's fine to be played, then it's a card that's fine to be played. I mean, heck, we can still play Soul Ring turn 1. So, I mean, take that for what it is. So, anyway, that wraps up this episode of the Magic Untapped podcast here for the month of September 2021. Thank you so very much for sticking with me. We'll be back again next month, probably with a co-host that time around. Thank you very much for listening. I'm Barry White.